So we'll get started today. Thanks everyone for joining us. Good afternoon. Before we officially get started, we at Rezcon wanted to respectfully acknowledge that we are situated on traditional territories and treaty lands, those of the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nation, as well as the Anishinaabe of the Williams Treaty First Nations, the Huron-Wendat, and the Métis Nation. As Rezcon's office is in Vaughan, we are grateful to have the opportunity to work and live in this territory. COVID-19 has been exceptionally hard on everyone, but the mark of the pandemic in March of 2020 was especially difficult for women. Coined the she-cession, job losses and economic downturns caused by the pandemic disproportionately affected women who predominantly work in service sector jobs and are often primary caregivers for their children. Thanks to vaccines and public health measures, people are getting back to work and the economy is recovering. However, most figures show that employment has rebounded much faster for men than women. At the same time, and not much different than pre-pandemic figures, the construction industry in Ontario alone will need to hire 100,000 workers within the next 10 years. Many of these jobs are in the residential sector, which depends on specialized skill sets to respond to our unique market needs. In-demand residential careers include concrete and drain workers, elevator installers, crane operators, and finishing trades. There's a clear opportunity to the industry to recruit from underrepresented groups, women included. Figures show that across sectors of construction on the skilled trade side, we are averaging about 7% female participation rates. So what does it take to attract more women into the industry? While careers in construction offer high pay, good benefits, and high job satisfaction, there are still barriers that exist for women to first entering the industry and also staying in the industry. While the culture of construction has improved over the years, it is no secret, especially with the Nelmar incident that occurred just this past April, that the culture of construction still enshrines stereotypes and has a long way to go for full positive improvements. The events in April served as a trigger to Rezcon that a greater strategic focus was needed on retaining women in our industry through improving on-site conditions, changing the culture of construction, and increasing mentorship opportunities, just to name a few. Today, we'll hear from Minister Dunlop, engage attendees through an interactive Q&A, and get input from a panel of women who have worked or are currently working in the construction industry on how to attract, hire, and retain more women in our industry. We'll also hear from Franz Davio, who will share some research from the Canadian Apprenticeship Forum. Our first speaker is Jill Dunlop. Jill has been a member of Provincial Parliament for Simcoe North since 2018. Born and raised in the town of Coldwater in Simcoe North, Jill witnessed the importance of community and small local businesses early on. As her grandparents owned and operated the still thriving local Dunlop Plumbing, and as her parents were actively engaged community members. Jill was also exposed to politics early on by both of her parents. Her mother, Jane Dunlop, is a current councillor and the deputy mayor of the township of Severn. Her father is the former MPP and a predecessor representative of Simcoe North. Prior to being elected, Jill attended Western University and later joined the faculty of Georgian College. She's also the mother of 3 post-secondary age daughters, all giving her unique insights into the world of post-secondary education. In 2019, Jill was appointed as the Associate Minister of Children and Women's Issues in the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services. Most recently, in 2021, Jill was appointed as the new Minister of Colleges and Universities and has spent the summer meeting and touring the province, visiting Ontario's world-class post-secondary institutions. Please join me in welcoming Minister Dunlop as she delivers keynote remarks.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jill Dunlop, Minister of Colleges and Universities, and I'm delighted to join you here virtually today to celebrate women in construction. When you consider that construction is the 7th largest industry in Ontario by employment, accounting for 7.2% or $50.9 billion of Ontario's GDP, It's no wonder that our government recognizes that skilled trades and construction are essential to Ontario's economy, and even more so as we continue to recover from the impacts of COVID-19. People choose to enter the skilled trades for a variety of reasons, and the benefits of this pathway are clear. Now, I know I'm speaking to the converted, but a career in the skilled trades offers great earning potential, the chance to use cutting-edge technology, being paid while you learn on the job, many paths to advancement, and the opportunity to gain transferable skills. To help train the next generation of construction industry professionals, Ontario offers many skilled trades programs at colleges across the province, including in construction. Enrolling in a college program offers a chance to learn from skilled and experienced tradespeople and benefit from a network of industry connections that can lead to apprenticeships and jobs. And what's great is that many college trades programs also include apprenticeship training or co-ops as part of the diploma, so students can complete the in-school requirements of an apprenticeship as part of the program. By providing a combination of in-class learning and on-the-ground experience, a college program is a great place to start working toward a career in construction. It's no secret that the construction industry has historically been composed largely of men. In fact, women account for just over 12% of employment in construction in Ontario. This tells us that we need to do things differently. And although we've closed the gap between the number of women and men pursuing college and university education in general, we need to build greater awareness among women about the rewarding careers that exist in the skilled trades as well, including in construction. That means we need to break down barriers that make it difficult for women to pursue careers in this field. With a predicted future gap of 100,000 construction workers within the next decade, we need to recruit women more than ever before. We need more people to see the value of learning a skilled trade, and that the trades offer a career to aspire to and to be proud of. Skilled labor jobs are good jobs that provide a meaningful, financially stable career path for many Ontarians, including women. Through partnerships between colleges, training providers, unions, government, and organizations like Rezcon, things are improving. Achieving equal representation for women in traditionally male-dominated industries is a priority for our government. And on a personal note, as a mother of 3 determined daughters, I wholeheartedly believe that women can accomplish anything they set their minds to. And while October is actually Women's History Month, we know that in the past and present, women have been crushing stereotypes and doing remarkable work in fields like engineering and construction. I want to share my own experience with pursuing my passion and breaking barriers. I was lucky enough to be raised by 2 hardworking parents. My father was a member of provincial parliament and a plumber, and my mom a councillor and now deputy mayor. I grew up watching with amazement at these intelligent, ambitious people dedicated their lives to contributing to their communities. Soon after, I channeled that curiosity and fascination I had for public service into a career in education and later politics. And being a woman in politics, I've had my fair share of challenges. It's up to all of us to create better conditions that allow women to succeed and thrive in the workforce. And indeed, to make the workforce more inclusive for everyone, removing barriers to opportunity and success. I'm encouraged through events like these that continue the conversation and inspire dialogue. I hope you benefit from the stories of the women here today. Thank you and enjoy this wonderful event.
We are very appreciative that Minister Dunlop has been a longtime champion for women in the skilled trades, and we are looking forward to continuing our collective efforts to encourage more women to enter the industry and stay in the industry. Our next speaker is Franz Davio. Franz is a seasoned executive, having held various leadership roles in large national organizations. She's currently the executive director of the Canadian Apprenticeship Forum and is an advocate for better inclusion of unrepresented people in the skilled trades and for apprenticeship as a viable and equitable education pathway in Canada. Previously, Franz held positions as the executive director of the Heavy Duty Aftermarket Association and was the vice president of the Automotive Industry Association, where she created the Advancing Women in Automotive Knowledge Exchange program and led the development of the first labor market information portal for the automotive aftermarket industry. Franz is an advisor on the Ministerial Advisory Committee on a national campaign to promote the skilled trades as a first-choice career for young people. Franz holds a Master of Professional Communication, is a certified association executive, and an accredited knowledge management practitioner. Franz proudly serves as an officer in the Canadian Armed Forces Army Reserves. Welcome, Franz.
Thanks, Amina, and thank you for the invitation. I'm really excited to be here. I just wanted to acknowledge first that I'm coming to you from the Ottawa area, which is the unceded territory of the Anishinaabe and Algonquin people. And I am happy to be able to live and work on this land. So a little bit about the Canadian Apprenticeship Forum before we go to my presentation. We celebrated 20 years this past year. We have been doing research all this time around apprenticeship in the skilled trades. And sort of our value proposition for Canada is that we bring people together to have these conversations based in data and looking at evidence in order to inform solutions for the general skilled trades community in Canada, but also specifically for apprenticeship in Canada. And Rezcon is a member of the Canadian Apprenticeship Forum. We're happy to have them as a partner. And some of you that are here today may also be members of the Canadian Apprenticeship Forum, and we thank you for that. So I'll ask Amina to put up my presentation to the first slide. That says, I can't see if it's up though. Perfect. Okay, so here's the deal. I'm happy to have these conversations with all of you, and we've been having these conversations for a while, and some of you have been having these conversations for even longer than I have. So for today, we're going to be talking about sort of the numbers in the statistics, and after that, you're going to hear a panel of wonderful, wonderful women. But here's sort of my question, and the question that some of us have been asking ourselves for a little while now, and that'll take me to my second slide. And that is, why is this still a thing? Like, why is this still a thing? We're still having conferences, and the conversation is still around barriers. So barriers to entry and barriers to completion. So let's address that right now, if we can move to the second slide. So the change has been slow. It's been a reluctant change. And I don't know if you know, but there's over 30 years of documented research done on why women are underrepresented in the skilled trades. So what the barriers are. We've been talking about this for a really long time. And there are over 300 documented research projects that were done on this subject as well over the last 30 years. So if you look at over the last 3 years or so, there have been wonderful conferences like this one held across Canada, small, large, some are just, local based, some are association based, some are whole, sector based, and those are wonderful. But we have to ask ourselves now, so now what? And that's a little bit about what I want to pick your brain about today or talk to you about today. And if you just go back to the previous one, Amina, just for a second, I just want to point out, Minister Dunlop talked about 12% women represented in construction trades. My statistics today that I'm going to show you today are around apprenticeships. So that's the research that the Canadian Apprenticeship Forum does. So the statistics that I'll show you today are about registered apprentices. So, numbers matter. And so now that we know all the barriers, because we've been doing research for 30 years, there's 300 projects that are documented, there's a number of conferences. So let's now really focus on what needs to be done, and that's moving those numbers. So if you look at this slide, it's the share of female new registrations and completions in traditionally male-dominated trades by province. So it excludes cook and hairstylists. So if you look at the new registrants and the program completions, you'll see that the percentages are still really low. If we go to the next slide, we're going to continue talking about numbers. So why do numbers matter? And Minister Dunlop addressed this, and so did Amina in her opening comments, because this is your Ontario picture. According to the Canadian Apprenticeship Forum labor market information research data that we do every year, we have for the last couple of years. And this table shows you the projected completions in the red seal trades. And when I say completions, I mean apprenticeship completions in order to become a certified journey person. Okay, so that's sort of the frame of reference that I come to you from today. It's around apprenticeships and the red seal programs. And so, but I think the reason that it's important to look at these, because these are sort of, this is the bailiwick of the Canadian Apprenticeship Forum, it does translate to all of the trades sort of around construction and all the trades in where women are underrepresented. That may not be part of the apprenticeship sphere or the apprenticeship program. But if you look at these, you look at the projected completions in Ontario, and then the certifications required, and that's based on you know, the modeling from our economists, and these reports are available for free on the Canadian Apprenticeship website if you want to go and take a look at them at your leisure. And then, you know, the gap of what's going to be outstanding. And so why do the number of women in these trades matter? Because if you look at some of these trades, the red noted circles are the ones that are in critical danger, I suppose, of having huge skills gap. And then the yellow is sort of the mid-range urgency for gaps. And then the bottom are the green, where according to modeling, we're doing pretty okay in terms of the number of registrants coming into the apprenticeship program. So those trades that are in dire need for more people, you have to, like Minister Dunlop and Amina said, look at the entire population. So if you don't mind going to the next slide. So what do we know after all of that research and all of those numbers? We know what the barriers to entry are. And I know that you're going to hear from some tradeswomen on the panel, but what the research says and has said over the last many years is that the barriers to entry there's really four main ones. You know, this is changing now, the top one, because there's a huge effort across the country to promote the skilled trades for women, and you know, Skills Ontario and Skills Canada are doing a wonderful job with young women in really changing the face of the skilled trades. So that's being handled, I believe. They're doing some good work. We keep hearing that schedules are difficult to buy into in the construction trades when women are primary caregivers, and that's even more evident during the pandemic, when when the women became primary caregivers at home for not only young children but also extended family members. And so the schedules, the feedback that's been ongoing forever is that it makes it difficult for any caregiver. Just so happens that women tend to be the primary caregivers. And then Amina touched on this in her opening remarks, but the reputation of the industry. I don't have to tell you that, but there's still, you know, some reputational image issues around construction, around the skilled trades that that really need to be addressed, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. And then job postings, as simple as this may be for some, don't really state the obvious that everyone is welcome. And so, when you're submitting, you're putting up open position postings, or you're putting out an offer of employment somewhere, you kind of have to go out of your way to make it obvious that you're a welcoming environment and that you're actually looking to hire women and underrepresented people. Now, there's barriers to entry, and then there's barriers to staying in the skilled trades or staying in construction. Okay, these are the people, women are leaving at a higher rate than men once they do start employment in the skilled trades. And the bottom line, the top reason is that there is still harassment and bullying on work sites. And what we know from the research and from all of the interactions that we've had with women that are working on the work sites or part of the skilled trades, a part of the apprenticeship program is and with employers, because we have a lot of interaction with employers, there are a lot of really well-meaning people working in HR or working in management for the employers who really want to make a difference, and there are very good, solid HR policies on paper somewhere. The thing that we're hearing, however, unfortunately, is that those nice policies and those good intentions don't necessarily translate to what's actually happening on the work sites. And so there's a disconnect between what's at the grassroots and what's in the office. We're still hearing from women that on work sites, they were really like to have available washrooms and safe, clean washrooms and PPE that fits. But that's been around forever. Now I believe that there's from what we've been hearing, there's some great options these days regarding PPE. And then they're leaving because they're saying that there's discrimination as it relates to advancement or pay in their workplaces. And then caregiving is one of the reasons why women who have entered the trades are leaving. So if they do intend to have children one day, they're the ones that are doing the primary caregiving at home. And there's the 1-year policy of leave that they'd like to take, and then it becomes just really hard to get back into the swing of things. So this is what we know after all that research. And when I say research, it's, from our perspective, it's surveys, yes, but it's also roundtables. We have national events where we have hundreds of skilled tradeswomen come and give us the feedback and participate in helping us understand what's going on. So speaking on completion and speaking about, the reasons they leave, if we go to the next slide. And again, this is apprenticeship program completion stats. So this is just a comparison, and these are the red seal trades, and this is from Statistics Canada and from the Registered Apprenticeship Information System, in which every province feeds in their apprenticeship information. So if you look at this slide, you can see that there is a difference between the percentage of female apprentices that complete their program and the percentage of male apprentices that complete their program by red seal trade. Just leave that up for a second. And again, this is information that you can find on the Canadian Apprenticeship website. So if we go to the next slide, we wanted to spend just a minute or so on specifically the impact of COVID on apprenticeship. And unfortunately, we don't have the statistics yet at the time of this conference around the differences, the gender differences around COVID impacts, but we can see that the employment rate during the months of COVID really impacted these sectors in terms of how many people kept their full-time employment. And we're hearing that the economy has rebounded, and now we're anticipating more work than there are people. And so that's a good indication of economic recovery. But we do know that generally across the country, the unemployment rate for apprentices around the country during the first year of COVID was 29% unemployment. So if we go to the next slide. So now we know the numbers. Well, we know, it's a few numbers. And we know that we've been doing all this research for many years. So here's the kicker, like, what now? How do we change the numbers? Well, we know because we've, when I say we, I mean the collective we as a society know, because there have been many things that have been tried across the country, many pilot projects where they've tried different things to get more women working in the skilled trades, more research that's been done, all of that good stuff. We know there are things that work. So I am presenting to you things that have been proven to work, and you can do with them what you will, but it's not rocket science. Okay, so we know there are barriers, we know the numbers are low, and here are the things that will change those numbers. So we need to wrap our heads around, okay, how are we going to move forward? At some point, I would like to be in a place where we can stop talking about barriers, because we already know what they are, and then start tracking progress. That to me would be a wonderful place to be. So if we look at changing the numbers, here are the things that will change the numbers. Like there's no going around it, okay? And this is, I wasn't sure if I was going to actually put this in the presentation because it's kind of a scary word. And I know that there's pros and cons for this quota word, from various aspects, from various people. And I get that. I understand that. But historically, quotas have been shown to work. They have been shown to move the numbers up for women who either wanted to be more represented on boards, on corporate boards, in different sectors. And now we're looking at the skilled trades. Why would they be any different? Why would the skilled trades be any different than what's been proven to work in other sectors? And the definition of quota varies by your experience and your if you're an employer, if you're a union, like I get it, and we all understand that. But quotas, they only compensate where there's already discrimination, where you're already starting from behind the 8 ball. And so they're meant to bring things up to an equal playing field. And they're not meant to be long-term. They're meant to be a temporary help to get us to where we need to be. I'm not going to spend any more time on that because I know it's a contentious issue. But for us at the Canadian Apprenticeship Forum, we are advocating for numbers and quotas to be at least considered on large infrastructure projects. So the second bullet, and what we know works, is zero tolerance policy for harassment on all work sites. And that's not just if you're a woman, that's like for everybody. I have 2 young sons in their 20s just trying to get into the skilled trades, both level 1 apprentices. And oh my goodness, the stories that I hear about the things that are happening on work sites. So this is not just, this is a general rule of thumb that harassment and bullying on work sites should not be ever tolerated. And I mentioned before that the HR people or the people in management, all good intentions. And there are many workplaces that we interact with where there are solid HR policies on paper. The issue comes, and the dilemma is, if you have a worker that's that has some behaviors that fall within harassment or the bullying policy that you have, and you're already short-staffed on site, like the zero tolerance, what does that mean for you? And how do you handle that as employers or as locals? So that's a tough one, and we don't have the answer. What we're saying is that in order to change a culture, it's nice to have zero tolerance policies for harassment and bullying, but you need to implement them. Like, you need to enforce them. Otherwise, culture change is really difficult. I talked about the third point, I talked about that already, access to safe, clean washroom facilities and proper fitting PPE. The other bullet, consider alternative arrangements to scheduling to accommodate caregiving. And the other really important one is provide mentorship and support. And mentorship and support has been really key to women already working in the trades and them saying, look, if you have another woman working for you that could perhaps provide some mentorship or support, or if you have, an employee that you think I could be matched with for mentorship that would be able to take me on and, like show me the ropes. That is key. When there are no support networks for women working in these non-traditional jobs, it's very, very hard to retain them. So I'll go to the next slide. I'm going to just check in. I think I can see the questions. That's a good question. I'll just address that too, if you don't mind, Amina. How do you put quotas in place on large infrastructure projects when there's not enough women presently in the working industry? Yeah, that's a dilemma. That is a legitimate dilemma. The one problem that we have is when someone says there aren't any women that want to work in this sector, so that's why we can't have quotas. I would say I don't believe that at this point in time that is true. I think that if we were to, as a society or as an industry, change the environment, address that reputation, put in those zero tolerance policies, and make the workplaces safe and welcoming and non-discriminatory, I think that the research shows, and the women tell us, that they would stick around and they would actually apply to those jobs. But yes, it is quite the predicament. Okay, so I only have a couple of more minutes with you, and I'm going to take advantage of that time to just talk about some of the sports that you can take advantage of. So there is a national strategies to support women in trades. It was developed by employers and labor representatives, educators, and different organizational groups, community groups across the trades across the country that came together through the Canadian Apprenticeship Forum and said, look, we need to develop something national in order to make some change. And the whole premise of the national strategy, and I'll give you the website after, it's free. There's, you could take as much as you want from there. There's a ton of really good resources. The bottom line is that we want to track the numbers because if you don't measure things, they tend not to get done. And so that's where the Canadian Apprenticeship Forum is coming from, and that's where our members are buying into and saying, okay, what gets measured gets done. So as a sector, as a skilled trades community, let's start by employer, by sector, actually tracking the number of women that are employed in these non-traditional jobs. And once we track the numbers, then we can say, okay, these are the things that we implemented. Did it move the number or not? And if it did, then okay, it's tried and true. Let's expand it. And so that's what we're trying to do. You have probably heard there are a lot of really good pledges and movements across the country, across different sectors about, the 20 by 30 or 30 by 30 or all those great numbers. The skilled trades community and the Canadian Apprenticeship Forum got together, and it's the actual community that said, you know what, 15% for this strategy is probably feasible. And 15%, if you remember that 4.5, 4.8% slide that I showed you at the very beginning, we're talking about the number of women registered as apprentices in the non-traditional trades. And so we're saying we're going to go from 4.8 to 15, and we're going to track that success, and we're going to track to see if there's any movement, because we want to stop talking about the barriers. We want to try things. We want to try things and see and track whether or not they work. And if they work, let's tell people they work so that people can try it too, and then we can collectively move the number. That's kind of the thought. So there is a movement that you can take part in the next slide. It's called, the strategy is called Champions for Change. And it was put together by the community, like I said. And at the next slide, if you go to the website, and I'll give it to you at the end, there you're making a pledge to move that number. You know, that 4.8% number I was talking about that is also on the website, you'll be able to look at it. To 15, you're making the pledge. And on this website, there are toolboxes. There are toolboxes for educators, so people who are working with young people to try and help them identify their pathway into the skilled trades. There are toolboxes for labor. So there are toolboxes for employers. And in those toolboxes, there are best practices of things that have been tried and things that have worked, and explanations of what you can do in programs and how to do things. And so you don't need to recreate the wheel. All this stuff has already been tried. All this stuff has been documented before. So our goal is to put it all in one place where you can all go and get it and use it. So the next slide is just an example, of some of the employers that have decided to take the pledge with us. And so when you take the pledge to be a Champions for Change in the skilled trades and to move that number, we're asking you, in order to have your logo on here, to take the pledge, to give us your numbers. Us being the Canadian Apprenticeship Forum, we're researchers, we do data. So on a yearly basis, you fill out a survey and you send us your data, and year over year, and your best practices and what you're trying and what's working, what's not working. And then we're able to collectively put it here and track movement. And so that's kind of the idea behind this space. And yes, there is a lot going on around the mentorship space. And I think that there's some information on this website, but you're right, we should have more conversations about mentorship and what it means, and what it looks like, and which you know, what works and what doesn't. So the next slide is the allies. So those that don't hire apprentices or women in the trades, but are allies or supporters of this national strategy to move the number from 4.8 to 15% by 2030. And so I said that at the last slide, if you like, you can go and check out the switcanada.ca. If you can move it to the last slide, Amina. Yeah, there it is for you. It's again, free resource for you. If you'd like to take part, if you'd like to take the information from there, it's yours to do what you want. So the next slide, just so you know, a little bit of a plug for the Canadian Apprenticeship Forum. But this is where hopefully you can engage and continue having these discussions. We're actually developing a national leadership program for women that are working currently in the skilled trades. So a leadership program that addresses things like supervisory and management skills, advocacy, communications, public relations, like speaking engagements and things like that. So the idea is that we're helping these women that are already in the skilled trades build tools to become leaders and perhaps public speakers for some. And then we have our national conference next year, specifically for women in the skilled trades. And the national strategy that I was talking to you about, we're going to have yearly reports on the outcomes of everyone that's engaged. So I'm happy to have been able to share this little bit of data, a little bit of insight into what the research tells us for women in trades. I'm always happy to be here to talk about this really important subject, but I'm always happy as well to say, okay, so what's next? So what are we actually tangibly going to do? Like, what are the things that will be done to change that number? And so I thank you for your attention, and I'm really looking forward to hearing the panelists.
Thanks, Franz. Ahid did put the SWIT Canada link in the chat for everyone to go visit. after the webinar. But just on the note of what you said about the policies, a related initiative of ours is RESCON's Anti-Racism Roundtable to combat racism and discrimination in the construction industry. And so a big push from that roundtable and from RESCON is for our members to have an anti-discrimination and anti-racism employer policy. But again, having that piece of paper only means so much if you don't do the work in terms of implementation. And then I guess our next presenter kind of dovetails well into what you were saying about data and measuring. And so this is only a poll session of about 90 participants, but hopefully this will lead into more research within our membership. So I'll kick it over to Ahid Al-Ashri now, who is the Policy and Programs Analyst at Rezcon, who's going to kick off our poll in Q&A kind of session.
Hey everyone, I'm happy to be here. So we're just going to do a quick poll, and it's just to understand kind of the audience that we have with us, and then also some of the experiences that they have with recruiting women and then keeping women with them in the construction industry. So the first question is, who are you representing? So if everybody can just vote and like.
Yes, the results are coming in pretty quick here. We're almost at 50%, so give everyone 20 more seconds. Okay, we're stalling about 75%, so I'll end the poll. Thanks, everyone.
So we have 33% who are builders or developers, 4% are from the subtrades, 9% from their union representatives or workers, 6% are non-union workers, 7 are government, 13 are training delivery, and then 28% other. If you want to put what you are in the chat from other, that would also be great. And then next question.
Yeah, just 1 second.
Yeah. So we just want to know which sector you are from in the construction. So whether you're residential, ICI, heavy civil, EBSCO, or other.
Everyone, 10 more seconds. So you should be able to see results ahead.
Yeah, so we have 70% coming from residential, 17 from ICI, 4 from heavy civil, and 17 other. Okay. And then next. Okay.
Oh, sorry, did we just do this one? I apologize.
Yeah.
There we go.
So now about women in the workplace on site. What percentage of women are employed by your employer on site? So just give an estimate. I don't assume anybody knows exactly, but an estimate would be great.
And all these responses are obviously anonymous. So
Yeah.
just a flag there.
But we can collect them at the aggregate level afterwards, and then we'll use them with our certain committees and share them with our industry partners, but at an aggregate level.
So less than 10%. So 55% have less than 10%, and then 30% people said 10 to 25, 7% said 25 to 50, and 9% said more than 50% of the people on site are women. That's good.
And I guess that less than 10% number is similar to like the national and provincial figures that we've also seen. So
Yeah. And then the same thing, but in the office, what would be your best estimate of women in the office?
And I guess we obviously expect to see more here because there's women in construction. I guess they're largely not on site.
yeah, I see that there are some people who have their hands raised. So if you just want to put your comment or question in the chat, that would be great.
So we'll just close in about 10 seconds.
Okay, so 6% said less than 10%, 14% said between 10 and 25, 41 said between 25 and 50, and 39% said more than 50, which is exactly what we assumed, that you would have a lot more women in the office than on site. And then for strategic priorities, is getting more women into construction a strategic priority for your company?
About 10 more seconds.
Okay, so 48% said yes, it is a strategic priority, 15 said no, and 37% said they're unsure.
Yeah, and I guess I would be curious, maybe not for this event, but just having a better understanding for those who answered no, why not? But that might be for a larger, broader industry survey that we do in the future.
Yeah, this information is really helpful because it helps our committees focus on what to ask and where to go deeper.
Yeah.
Even your comments in the chat are very helpful too, because it just gives us a little extra context that we can't get otherwise.
Yeah. So just for the challenges in hiring, what are the top challenges in hiring women? Is it not enough are interested, or just union trouble or culture?
I will say, just for clarity, we work very well with Local 183, and so this is not trying to signal them out, but as Franz will tell you, there's lots of trade unions out there, and not all trade unions are as open as other ones, but most of our workers do work with 183, and I do have to give 183 credit, especially the training center with Sandro Pinto and Lisa Price. They do make a lot of meaningful efforts in this area, so this was not a question targeted towards them. So just for clarity. All right, if we can get a couple more people to answer, we're a little low. I think like the second or third last question, so there's not too much more coming your way. I'll end the poll now.
Okay, so 83% people said not enough women are interested, so there's a small labor pool. 10% they have trouble joining the union, 45% workplace culture, and this is some of the stuff that we went through with Franz. And then 24% physical infrastructure like washrooms and change rooms, and 2% said other. Yeah, one of the people in the chat said not many women seem to be available, so when they hire, it doesn't matter about gender, it's just these women are not usually available. And then challenges retaining. What are the top challenges with respect to retaining women? Is it the mentorship or not enough female coworkers?
We'll give them a little bit more time. And you can click as many options as apply for these questions. Okay, 10 seconds. Can you see the results ahead?
Yeah. So 48% lack of mentorship, 60% not enough female coworkers, 50% hours of work. So it doesn't work with childcare or other family obligations. 45% workplace culture, 29% physical infrastructure like washrooms and change rooms, and then 5% other.
I think a lot of that is exactly what Franz just said in her presentation. Feel free to jump in too, Franz, if you want.
Yeah, thank you. I'm paying attention. It's all good.
Yeah, I mean, just to build on some of that, like women don't apply for jobs. I mean, this is going back to the pay and qualifications, but I think it does have some relation to like the situation in construction. Like women, it's a known fact that women don't apply for jobs that they don't either feel qualified for, or they don't think that they would be a good fit versus men. And so it's similar, like they're not going to apply in the first place if they don't see themselves in the job. And just going back to kind of what Franz was saying before, and in the chat, like if there's a bad reputation or they hear a story, whether it's true or not, they're just not going to consider it in the first place. And in the event that there is a job posting, and it doesn't really say like welcome of, like just having that obvious sentence, welcoming of that disclaimer, women, races, etc. Just little things like that could change a lot in terms of recruitment.
Yeah, and then for the last question, mentorship programs, 18. So are you aware of a mentorship program within your current workplace, or have you participated in one in the past? 18% yes, aware of a mentorship and have participated. 6% yes, aware, but have not participated. 47, no mentorship program exists in my workplace, and 29% unsure if one exists. Yeah, I think mentorship programs are definitely important. I think conversations that Amina and I have had with women that are on site told us how it helped them with staying there and wanting to, like, how it motivated them to continue being there. So, yeah.
I think that was the last question, so we'll close up.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, we'll take this. I think it's really good live data, and then we'll use it to essentially create better surveys and questions and get more data very specific to residential. Okay. So I think up next is the panel. So I'm just going to change speakers. I'm going to do that. Okay. So I'm going to pull up Jen's bio. So before I read Jen's bio, one thing that we were talking about as we were planning this event was construction's a lagger when you look at the skilled trades. And what they've been able to figure out in the industrial sector, especially the manufacturing sector, and they may have figured it out 20 years ago, we're starting to figure out today. And when you look at the numbers that Franz put in front of us, and some of the ones that jumped out to me, where you have 4% of women in a trade and only 2% of those 4% complete, like, we have a lot to do in this area. And so I'll read you Jen's bio, and she's incredible, but also she brings that industrial manufacturing experience, and she also has a wealth of knowledge and really gives back to the community. And so that was kind of the thinking for this panel, but also for asking Jen to be part of it. So Jen, through dedication, mentorship, is a very sought after speaker, and she has a rich history of breaking ground and destroying stigmas in the skilled trades with women and non-traditional careers. Jen is the director of competitions and young women's initiatives at Skills Ontario. Skills Ontario is a very fond spot in Rezcon's heart. I'm lucky enough to sit on the board there, and it's an organization focused on encouraging youth to explore and pursue careers in the skilled trades and technologies. Recently, Jen Greene just completed an appointment with the Ministry of Labor as a youth advisor, where she reported directly to the minister, and she promoted the advancement of skilled trades across the province and country. And she's done this for almost 20 years now in various roles through volunteering, speaking engagements, and programming. Among her numerous and plentiful accolades, she's been presented with the WXN Top 100 Canada's Most Powerful Women Award. She also won the Conestoga College Alumni Distinction Award, and she's also founded several initiatives, including as a volunteer with the Skills Ontario Alumni Association as the president, and the National Alumni Committee as the chair and Ontario lead. She holds a C of Q and a C of A, and has an Ontario College certificate from Conestoga College for industrial mechanic millwright. And as we've said, she is literally a fearless trailblazer. She breaks glass ceilings, and she is a strong advocate for women. Not only does she preach it, but she practices it. So with that, I'm going to introduce you to Jen, who is going to moderate the panel.
Okay, thank you so much, Andrew, for that warm welcome. And really glad to hear and see this event today being presented and hosted by RESCON. More visibility and opportunities on events like this for women trades are really what's needed to try to help break that stigma, break the barrier, and really bring to light the opportunities, including the full 144 registered trades in Ontario in the 4 sectors. So with that, I would love to jump into our panel. And we've got a few questions to go through. But first, I would like to pass it to Bailey to introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Bailey Wood. I'm a plumber and gas fitter for UA Local 46. I'm actually currently on parental leave, but I'm a second generation following my dad and actually my sister's footsteps. They're both steam fitters, welders, and gas fitters as well. So lots going on in my family.
Bailey, how are you finding it? Is this your first mat leave?
It is, yes. So I'll be looking to go back and jump into the workforce in about 4.5, 5 months.
Any advice, real quickly, I'm throwing a new question at you, but any advice as far as what do you feel that you've learned that you could pass on as being a pregnant tradesperson?
Oh, I mean, I think it's the one thing to say is that it's doable. There are programs in place at, most workplaces to put you on lighter duties and things like that. I did work the majority of my pregnancy, so it's absolutely possible. You just, you need to reach out and talk to the office and make sure that they're putting you in a good, safe position.
Awesome, thank you. I have 2 kids of my own that are now 9 and 7, and I was the first pregnant tradesperson at an international company. And my manager walked into HR and said, "I have a pregnant millwright. What do I do?" There was no policy when I was pregnant with my first. And so making sure you work with your company to come up with a comprehensive strategy, where I had to make sure that I stopped climbing out of large industrial CNC machines at 7, 8, and 9 months pregnant was definitely a key component for me. Mm-hmm. Alexandra, can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, my name is Alexandra. I'm a tile setter. I've been one for about 10 years, and I work for Carpet Emporium, which is down in Niagara region of Ontario. I used to work for 183 for about 6 or 7 years as a tile setter. Yeah, I'm not too sure what else you need.
No, it's no problem. Just want to make sure you guys have a chance to introduce yourself and your backgrounds so that the audience can understand your trade. And next and last is Miriam, please.
Everyone, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for inviting. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Miriam Amin. I work for Great Golf. I used to be on site for 3 years, and I got promoted, and I work at the office. I work as a production manager. Sorry, production assistant manager. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so our first question for the panel today is a traditional one, but in earlier talks, I said I really wanted you guys to think outside of the box. So what is it that you like most about working in construction and the skilled trades? Those common answers are working with your hands and visual learner and problem solver. But thinking outside the box, what else do you really enjoy about your trade? Bailey, we'll start with you and we'll go in the same order.
One thing I really like about being in a union is we're constantly trying to be on like the cutting edge of certain technologies and things like that. So I really enjoy, learning with the new tools, learning with new materials. And I really, really like the idea behind wanting to do things more sustainably. It really speaks to me as a millennial. I really want to make sure that this trade is, moving forward constantly.
Thank you. Alexandra.
As a tile setter, I actually enjoy the art aspect of it. I enjoy being able to take the ideas of my clients and be able to put it on their wall using my hands and my fingers. I do a lot of paint by number, which gives me a design and kind of a layout to follow. I'm not a great artist myself, but being able to take those ideas and make them a reality for those people and have that joy and love for their idea, but through my workmanship, I really enjoy that feeling.
Thank you. Miriam.
I'm with Bailey on this one. I think the evolution of construction is every day. We were learning, we're coming up with new, more sustainable techniques and materials. But also outside that, I was happy to work with not just the site people, like the site personnel, but also with homeowners, the design. And that day that you close a house, when you present or when you give them their key to their home, making something from scratch and completing and executing like someone's home. Most of our homeowners was first-time buyers, and the amount of joy, some of them even cried of happiness. Oh, this is my first home. Or I think buying a home is one of the biggest purchases of life, and we're in that. So that's beautiful.
Thank you. Pop-up question from something that sparked my interest of what Bailey said. Being on the cutting edge means new technology, as mentioned. Do you feel that there's enough training that's happening to keep up with that, to be cutting edge? And it sparked my interest because as a millwright, I was trained on dial indicators for pumps and motors. And industry evolved, and then it was lasers and digital, but I had no idea how to use them. So it had advanced beyond what I had been taught and what I had learned. And I felt a little bit behind in trying to find the right training to add to that. Does anybody have any ideas or suggestions on keeping up with training and keeping on that cutting edge?
I know at my union hall, they're constantly, asking for government grants, and a lot of the time coming up with these incredible proposals and getting the money for these programs. In the 10 years that I've been in my hall, our, in-house training has gone from, a few pages being sent out to it being a pretty massive booklet of information and different courses. And, we really do try to, stay right on the edge of what's coming out. And it's part of the reason why, I've stayed in my union despite some of the struggles that I've had. It really does. I feel like, it feeds my brain and I really enjoy it.
Wonderful answer. Thank you. Jumping into question 2. At Skills Ontario, we launched a new conference last year for International Women's Day, which is in March. And one of the things that I really wish that I knew going into the trades was all the other things that affect as a different additional layer to the stigma for women in trades, not just how to get into trades, but everything else that we would maybe worry about. And Franz talked about a lot of them already, such as washrooms and childcare. And Bailey, I gave you a pop-up question of becoming a woman as a trade, or becoming pregnant as a tradesperson and those extra tribulations you deal into. And our conference really focuses on all those other things that we think about and deal with as an additional layer of an underrepresented group, such as HR real talk in situations and becoming a parent or childcare, becoming an entrepreneur. And so my question for you is, what are some of the main barriers that you face or have faced as a woman in construction? And what is your solution or your best practice to help overcome that? Bailey, we'll start with you again in the same order.
Okay, so for me, I'm pretty confident in, my knowledge and things like that, but every job site I go to, I feel the need to prove myself. And, my male coworkers, they have the same credentials, we have the same background, but for some reason, there's something, in the atmosphere that makes me feel like I have to try harder. And the solution to that is just, going into night school, making sure that you are educated and having that belief in yourself that, you're there, you can do the job and you've done it before. It's the same as everybody else. You don't have to put that extra higher standard on yourself. You really do need to have a dialogue with other women in the industry and realize that it really is more of a personal issue than it is your employer looking for you to prove yourself. So it's just knowing that, you are qualified.
Awesome. Alexandra, please.
So one of my biggest barriers that and hurdles has been when I get, so my crew will sit there and brainstorm, and we'll try and figure out what we can actually come up with. And I'll say an idea and it gets completely ignored. However, 5 minutes later, a male coworker will say the exact same wording that I've just said. And everyone's like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. So I've always had this issue, and I've always brought it up to my male coworkers and coworkers in general. It's like guys, I just said that, right? And I've always had to make a point of making sure that I've proved myself, as Bailey said. Every single job site, when you first walk through those doors, they look at you and go, oh, what are you doing here, right? I've had tons of clients who, because my name is Alexandra, it can be Alex for short. Lots of clients have recommended me to others going, oh yeah, Alex is a great tile setter. However, once I actually show up and they see that I'm a female, they go, oh, well, maybe not you, right? Actually, it's fantastic that I work for a company now, Carpet Emporium, who my CEO is actually a female. And she absolutely adores the fact that her main tile manager is a female who actually has the knowledge behind and is able to problem solve on the fly. And I actually run a crew of about 10 male installers, and every single one of them goes, no, you have to talk to Alexandra about your problem, because if she doesn't tell me that I'm allowed to do it, I'm not allowed to do it. And there's been tons of people who have had that issue where I've gone on job sites and I'll have a male coworker with me, and the first thing they do is look at them and go, oh, you're who I need to talk to. And they go, nope, she's the boss. So I've been fortunate enough to have those coworkers who have had my back, male and female, that have been like, no, actually she's the boss. So luckily, that's kind of my solution a little bit, is that I actually have those conversations with your coworkers, and mine have been pretty understanding and accepting of the fact that I actually am the boss, even though I am a female. But yeah, site supers and a lot of head representation have a lot of issues in the beginning of actually accepting a female running a crew of men. But it is definitely keeping at it and working every day towards it, and sadly proving yourself every time. And yeah, definitely train yourself to have that knowledge and have those answers, or if you're able to find those answers in a decent amount of time too, right? But don't be scared to ask those questions when you don't know, because I understand that everybody has to be vulnerable at some point. And if I have if I have a stubbornness that I don't want to admit that I'm wrong, my male coworkers won't actually open up and be considerate of my issues as well. So
I think that's something that we hear all too often. One of my favorite stories is we had sister plants and maintenance worked together, and someone had called looking for a part. They'd asked for maintenance and it got transferred, and it was night shift, and I was the one who picked up. And someone said, I'm looking for maintenance. And I said, this is. And they're like, no, not the parts clerk. I need a millwright. I'm like, yep, you've got them. I can help you. No, I need a millwright. I'm like, yes, I am the millwright. Can I help you? So I think it's just something where women and underrepresented groups it's like a unicorn. It's not something that you see or is common yet. We're getting there. So I think trying to showcase that a little bit more, that we are here, we are capable, and once we're seen, being able to make sure that it is understood. So thank you, Alexandra. Miriam, please.
So I went from college right to a construction site. The culture was very different, but at the beginning, I also have this perception that I have to prove myself, because luckily there was another finishing super, so I wasn't the only one, and the person who was training me was a female coworker who was on her way to mat leave. But as I communicated with the other two, and they said, it's all in the past. You don't have to be nervous all the time. You don't have to prove yourself. You don't have to be 2 hours early every day. But I think talking, the actual experience that I've actually experienced, I didn't have anything that, that acted as a barrier. But in my own head, I had to do all of that. What helped was communicating with other female people that work on construction sites, the service department, the construction department. And I'm fortunate enough to work for a company that they don't care who you're, a female or a male.
I think it is definitely something that has been ingrained into us. All of you said about proving ourselves, and I'm definitely on board with that. It is something that I have felt my entire career. And a few years ago, I was having my resume professionally done. And one of the questions was asked is, what do you want people to see when they read your resume? And I didn't even blink. And one of my first answers was for people to recognize and believe that I belong in this space, in skilled trades, as a woman in skilled trades at any level. And I was kind of shocked at myself, where I'm like, oh, I'm even asking to have this done on paper, not just in person. So being able to constantly change this and work on different altitudes and programs and hosting events like this will help in that change. Our next question is, what improvements could be made within the industry to make construction and skilled trades more welcoming for women? And what is one thing that you would ask an employer to do before you got on site? For example, your first day. And we heard from Franz, one of the most popular things, when I say popular, I mean the most common thing that we hear is washrooms on construction sites. Is that one of your concerns, or what else do you have to answer that question? Bailey, Alexandra, and then Miriam, please.
So definitely, washrooms, even on sites where they do actually have a dedicated female washroom, a lot of the time it is locked and it takes several days to actually get the key to that washroom to me. So I'm either sharing with, the men on site, or having to leave the washroom unlocked until I get that key. And it's not really safe, and it's really not fair. There should be like an expectation that women of any trade, may come on site. These keys should be readily accessible. But the other thing that Franz said as well was the PPE. I think it sets a really bad example to show up on a job site as a female, and the only, safety vest that's available to you is, like a 3X. Generally women, we are smaller stature, and it's not crazy to think that you're going to need some smaller gloves, some smaller vests. There's nothing that makes you feel more out of place than wearing a vest that's 4 times the size, gloves that are 4 times the size. It makes you feel like you're a little kid in your dad's clothes, and it does not feel good walking around, even for just the first day. So.
Thank you. Alexandra?
So for the first day, I definitely want to touch base on like the horseplay, right? Because when you go into my biggest challenge on the first day is when you go into and you see all of these men and they're manhandling each other, or they're tossing bottles at each other, and then you're like, yeah, don't do that. Like, I don't want to be included in that. However, you do want to be included all at the same time. And it's very, very difficult, because there's a lot of times that I have to come across as a very cold-hearted person, because if I don't initiate that from the very beginning, they think that I can just be walked over. Now it's sad to say, because like a lot of my coworkers, you see them more than you see your family. So you tend to grow those relationships and everything. However, what I worry about is always someone overstepping that boundary, someone touching me, not necessarily inappropriately, but not how I want to be touched. I don't like when people touch me. I don't like when people get into my personal space. And to have that discussion with people is quite difficult. So if you have that discussion for all around, because I know men who don't like to be touched or have their personal space invaded, but because someone's been allowed to do it, it's kind of become the norm, or the bullying and everything like that. So like definitely the HR and the harassment and all of that would definitely, like, I like that it would be introduced on the, well, not on the first day of my day, but like just to be talked about, of like, hey guys, like the zero tolerance is definitely an issue, because definitely that first day of reading all of those vibes and learning all those personalities, it's very interesting, because some people clash with you right on the first day, and then some people just are too in your face about it. So when I like to go on my first day, I like my employers to be like, yeah, like mind your manners, everything like that. So because it should be across the board. But I can feel that as a woman, there's definitely those boundaries that need to be put in place.
I feel one of the things that needs to be focused on just as much is training for those already in the workforce, especially if they've never worked with a woman before, or it's the first woman on site. And that was pretty much my entire career. And I just felt like I was a giant guinea pig for a decade. Do you feel that enough opportunity is being done like that to be able to let people know ahead of time of, hey, don't do this? Do you think that, or certain other things that are happening ahead of time, do you think that enough has happened, more needs to happen?
Well, definitely not, because like a memo needs to go out when, even because especially when there are the newer generations that are coming in, they are very accepting about how the construction has evolved into involving women into trades. Like I've been on job sites that there's like a good 20 women on a job site, either in one trade or in multiple trades. But there is that stigma that like it's flirtatious, so it's allowed, or it's I'm joking, so it's allowed. And so all of those older generations, they're very blunt and like straight to the point and everything like that. So when it comes to teaching the older generations, I don't believe they've been taught. I don't believe they have had that opportunity to and been talked about it, right? To have those boundaries put in place. And even if they were put in place, they'd find something around it.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with some of our Skills Ontario conferences. We've had male technology teachers reaching out saying, hey, I don't have any women in my class. I wish there was, but I want the young men in my class, and this is high school or grade 7 and 8, I want them to attend the Young Women's Conference so that they can hear and they can see what these other layers are that women are dealing with in skilled trades, so that, for lack of a term, he could train ahead of time before they even graduated. And it was extremely impressive to see some of these teachers reaching out for that. Miriam.
Actually, I was fortunate enough to not have issues with the washrooms because we had one just for ladies and I had the key. And also in terms of policies and, I'm sure every company has their own policy. So before I actually signed the contract of my full-time employment, I had to read the entire manual, which was 43 pages. And where they introduced all about all the policies of grade golf. And then after you read that, you signed that, you've read it, you kind of understood it because you have 30 minutes to read a lot of pages. And then you go on a work site knowing that what is allowed, what you can take, what you shouldn't take, what you should no to. So I guess very fortunate not to experience any of that. So there are companies, it is possible that you do your forecast and you do beforehand and so being more like proactive as opposed to reactive, I guess.
Yeah, proactive and preventative is definitely the way that we need to be working more towards instead of reactive. That was a really great answer. I am very much so about preventative. So our last question for the panel today, before we wrap up, is what is one thing that you would tell a young woman before she goes into construction or who is interested in construction? And one of my favorite questions that I like to ask for anything is, what do you wish that you knew before you started? Because your own experience is some of the best medicine and advice. Bailey, please.
Well, I'd like to let young women know that the industry is getting better for women every day. Luckily, we get to be a part of the reason why things are getting better. We're giving our employers more of an incentive to get these issues resolved. You get to be a part of these conversations, and it really does make you feel quite powerful that, we can make change. And, we're doing it right now. Little things that, they seem so small, there's an avalanche. And it's accumulating. And the more of us are here, the more of us are pushing for change, the greater chance we have of actually achieving it. I think for me, the one thing that I've really held on to is just inside of the 10 years that I've been in my union, I've done two things that have, made the lives of, the sisters in my union hall that much better. Is we've gotten birth control onto our benefits. And the other thing was that I got baby change stations inside my union hall. So those, they seem like small things, but it's a precedent that is now set for all the women that follow behind me. And it makes me feel like there's a place for me here, and there's a place for all the women here, even if, you know, sometimes we feel like we have to fight for it.
Could not agree more, and deserves a clap. Alexandra, please.
So I would definitely continue what Bailey was saying, that like we are here, we are getting better. The workforce is definitely getting better. The male generations are getting better with seeing more women in construction and accepting us for who we are. I know that when I first started 10 years ago, there wasn't a male-female bathroom on most job sites. So even in those 10 years, more of the job sites that I go on to have those 2 designated bathrooms, and have been including us. But I definitely, I would say to every young woman out there that wants to be in construction, yes, there's going to be hurdles. Yes, there's going to be boundaries. But it's going to definitely be worth it in the end. You do get into a groove with your coworkers, male or female, and your site coworkers as well, not just your personal team, but you get into a groove with them. And if you find your spot, it's fantastic, and it is so worthwhile and rewarding at the end of it. And that one extra woman in the construction world makes it so much easier for the people, the women that are coming behind us, right? Like I was the first woman in step construction in the TDSB board construction program. And after me, there has been a number of women who have come through now. I was the first tile setter in 183. And again, after me, there's been a whole bunch of tile setters who are female coming through 183 Training Center. And there's been a lot of firsts and a lot of door opening when it came to my career. However, now it's a little bit easier for that person. There's that crack in the door, and now it's easier to open for those next generations of women. And it's not going to be an easy overnight fix. However, every woman who gets into the trades, they're adding a little bit more to the solution. And so, yeah, you're going to see hurdles and you're going to see barriers, but definitely push through those. They're not as hard as one may think, right? They're going to be challenges, but there is support out there, and definitely worth it at the end of the day to get into this industry. It is fantastic when you find those people who are actually there to support you and help move our industry forward. So I very much enjoy being able to look at the buildings that I get to build downtown Toronto, and I know I'm going to be able to tell my grandkids that, hey, I built that building, or I helped put some tile in that lobby, and it's going to be a proud moment for me. So I'm definitely very proud that I got into this industry, and I hope every woman that wants to get into this industry does pursue that dream. So
that was a really wonderful answer, especially about the support system. There's so many different women in trades groups today, whether it is by career specific or by industry. Everything from women of power line technicians to women in renewable energy, women in mechanical construction. There are so many different support groups out there that definitely weren't available when I started almost 20 years ago. So having those available to ask questions, find a mentor, learn from, definitely is a wonderful opportunity. And Miriam, we are at you.
I think I would say to the young women that to have an open mind. I know that I've heard Bailey and Alexandra saying that there are a lot of hurdles and issues, but I think that could be true with every industry. So I work in the food industry, similar situation, but one thing that you have to stick to it if you really like what you're doing. I think it's important that you again communicate your problems, and then I think when you properly communicate, I think they can be solved. But also what I wish I knew that in construction, there are so many sectors that you can work. For example, when I graduated, or when I was in high school, I had no idea that there's a whole sector that's called planning or land and development. And those are one of the, main or most important things in construction. So when you buy a land, you have to develop it, you have to service it and all that. It takes years. I had no idea about that sector. So I think for young women, they need to educate themselves with an open mind. And when I was in school, I thought, okay, civil engineering, project management, drafting, design, and that was it. That's all I knew. But when I'm actually working in a construction firm or a builder, there's so much more to do.
No, all three are really wonderful points. And to just add one little tidbit before we follow up on what Miriam said, I noted earlier that there's 144 registered trades in Ontario, but you look at each of the individual sectors and there's so many trades in there that most people don't even know are a trade or need an apprenticeship, or the level of detail and the breakdown. I mean, you look at crane operators, and there's quite a few different ones, but the public and people don't realize that, especially students or young people coming in. They don't know all those different levels of how many careers are actually within the construction sector. So being able to look through that list, just doing a quick read through and clicking on it and reading the description will open up such a new horizon of the careers that are available to you in Ontario. And with that, I want to wrap it up and give a huge thank you to Bailey, Alexandra, and Miriam for joining us today. Your answers were wonderful, and appreciate you also answering some of my pop-up questions. So thank you so much to RESCON for having us today, and I will kick it back over to Andrew. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think I'm not up next, am I? Am I doing closing, or do we have someone in between?
Oh, you're up next.
Okay, well, we're I guess to the closing, and this is our first, and I think it will become an annual event, and so I think we're very excited about that. But I just specifically want to thank the presenters, the organizers, and the panelists. So thank you to Audit and Amina, who put this together from an organizational point of view. Thank you, Franz. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Alexandra, Bailey, and Miriam. This is a labor supply issue, but it's also a personal issue. I can't remember who said it. It might have been Alex or Bailey, but you spend the vast majority of your time awake with people at work. And so, this is a business issue, but it's also a personal issue. And it's something that we just simply need to do better. And I think, we know what the CFA data shows, but I'm not sure everybody does. And so having Franz just present it. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves, and it shows the work that we need to do. We need more women in construction. We have a labor supply issue, and we need to remove the barriers holding women back, but we also need to do things more than just removing barriers, but we need to do things to actually encourage women to look at careers in the skilled trades. Everybody should be able to access, enjoy the well-paying careers that are in construction, whether it's on site, whether it's in the office. And we heard it, I think, from everybody, that there's some really easy next steps in how we can do that. You focus on a culture of safety and inclusion. Harassment is not welcomed. It won't be welcomed on site, and it will be dealt with. We need to focus on mentorship and onboarding. And specifically, we need to think about what needs to be done before people get on site. I was hoping that the washroom issues would have been taken care of, is one of the few positive things that would have come out of COVID. But I think there's still more work to be done there. But something as simple as, is there a key to the women's washroom when a woman tradesperson comes on site? That seems pretty easy, but it's something that needs to be done before they get there. I'm the chair of the Health and Safety Committee. I really, really can't stress enough that we need proper PPE, and that includes PPE that fits. So generally what we do is, instead of thanking speakers, we make a donation in lieu of. And so another group that does amazing work is BOLT. So it's Building Opportunities for Life Today. Raleigh Chakarova is an excellent executive director. I think she might be on this webinar. But essentially, we want to make a donation to BOLT, who is going to turn around and make sure that a woman getting into construction is going to get some support. And so instead of doing formal thank you to the speakers and getting a little gift, we're going to do that instead. And then looking forward, RESCON has another event with Orca coming up, so it's going to put it on there. This is our 3rd annual Mental Health and Addictions in Construction Symposium. We've got a number of great speakers lined up. If you want to register, we've sent it out. We're going to send it out again, or you can get in touch with Ahed. This is another important issue. It's something that has been exacerbated by COVID, and it's something that, impacts men and women and everyone, but it sometimes impacts people differently. But with that, I can't say enough good things. I think thank you everyone today for sharing your personal stories. We certainly had a lot of trailblazers on the call, and I like what Franz said. We need to get to 15%, and the work that you guys are all doing is what's going to get us there. So thank you to everyone who took the time to watch, and thank you to everyone who took the time to participate.